Howdy, and welcome to episode 167 of the Confidence Through Health podcast. This is your host, Jerry Snyder. In this episode, we speak with boxing and fitness expert, Romie Dalal. Romie has a saying, the magic happens when you become comfortable with being uncomfortable. We talk about this. We talk about the difference between being an athlete and being a non-athlete, just an average person who still needs to be healthy, still needs fitness. We talk about the obstacles of getting in the way of getting that done, but why it's important to have discipline and a routine and proper goal setting to be able to get those things. And when you put all those pieces together and have a fitness program that you like, that you can do, it doesn't have to be boxing, it doesn't have to be going to the gym, but just something that you can follow on a regular routine basis, how it changes your life and the importance of why we need to do that and how that like spreads through the community that we're in, spreads through the generations. And he talks about controlling what we do on a day-to-day basis, that we can't control everything out there. We can't control the future. We can't control so many things in our lives, but we can control what we do on a day-to-day basis. And ultimately, that's what, if we do the things that we know we should do, as he says, we know we should do the things that keep us fit, the key things that keep us healthy. And if we do those things, we're going to live a better life, live a longer life, and live a healthier life. So thank you, Romie, for being a guest on the Confidence Through Health podcast.
No problem. Pleasure to be here, Jerry. Great to speak to you.
So I'm really excited to have you on. I've had a couple of athletes on before that are top of the level, and I think that it brings a whole nother, like, yes, I love having doctors on to talk about the science of things, but a lot of times people look up to athletes, right? And whether or not they should, they do, and it's neat to get into the mind and the aspect of like what's going on, what's the discipline involved, what's this, what do you actually do with your nutrition? Are you truly doing these things, or, is it all for show type of aspect? So all that to say, I'd love to get you a chance to give a little bit of background about what you do, why you're passionate about fitness.
So I would say that growing up, I was, and this might seem a little bit off tangent, but growing up, I used to watch a lot of Dragon Ball Z. It was a cartoon.
Okay.
Yep. And it involved a lot of fighting, and they would take tremendous care of their bodies. So for me, I grew up watching that, and I wanted to be strong, and I wanted to be fast, and I wanted to be powerful. And that kind of started my interest into wanting to fight or wanting to box or understanding the art of fighting. I'd say maybe I was 7 or 8 years old here. And slowly as I got older, I was always curious. My dad was a big fan of Mike Tyson. So growing up, we'd stay up. I'm also from England. So when there would be a big fight on, we'd have to stay up till 4 or 5 in the morning to watch the fights. Watch Mike Tyson come out, knock someone out in 2 minutes, and then go to bed.
Yeah.
It's so long just to go to sleep shortly after.
Yeah.
So, I've always had a little bit of passion for boxing. Now, I started boxing very late. I started boxing when I was 16, turning 17.
Okay.
I'm 29 now. So the thing about boxing is it comes hand in hand with fitness. You can't be good at boxing if you're unfit.
Yeah.
So for me, I understood that shortly afterwards when I would go in the ring and I would start taking classes, and I would be out of breath, almost immediately. And I was like, damn, I really need to start focusing on my fitness here.
Right.
And I just focused on myself. I think it's very easy for a lot of people, especially nowadays, because, 10, 12, 13 years ago, social media wasn't really a thing back then, or it had just started to become a thing.
Right.
So I wasn't overwhelmed with what everyone was doing, how frequently everyone was training, what everyone looked like. It wasn't that much of a big deal back then. So I just focused on myself, got myself in the gym and started going.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I think that's a big piece of not just from an athletic side, but also just in general life is like now with social media out there, like in there's like 3 different apps that I can use to track the other runners that I compete against, nationwide or worldwide. And it's like, and yeah, I can look and go like, oh, okay, what workout did they do today? And compare that, which granted, there's so many different variables that go into the times that somebody else runs versus the times that I run, right? Or the workout that somebody else does in the ring versus what you do in the ring. If you try to duplicate the exact same thing, it's going to be really hard to do that.
Well, do you know what it is? Everyone's their own person. You
Yeah.
know, what works for someone isn't going to necessarily work for us. At the end of the day, whatever we see online is just a perception. It's a different perspective. It's almost so someone could be posting stuff online to be perceived a certain way, and then you see them in real life and it's completely different.
Right. Yep.
Boxing, for example, you might see someone throwing fancy combinations that they've been practicing for months for like a 5-second clip, and then you meet them in real life and they don't really know what they're doing. So but then also like on on the flip side of that, social media can be used for learning a whole new load of techniques or enhanced art form or learning a whole load of things about the body or fitness, in our case. So I think it's important to understand both sides. But yeah, just understanding that we know as human beings the work we have to put in, like whether we realize it or not. We know if we're getting enough sleep, we know if we're eating right. We know if we're putting work into our hard work into our sessions. We know that. And ultimately, if you're working out and you're leaving no stone unturned, that builds a certain level of confidence because you've done everything you can to make sure you're prepared. So I think that's a good way to look at it.
Right. Well, and from the athlete side, which I think goes into, the normal human person who's maybe just starting to work out or starting to look at their fitness, and like remembering that, like we always have good days and bad days.
Yeah.
Right. Like I read something the other day from a guy that I follow he's a scientist, but he's a runner as well. And he's looking at different running techniques, and he did a thing and he said, if you look at it, these training methods that these Olympic athletes did, the ones that did better at the Olympics, when you look at their history of like the 3 months before, he said the ones that did better, they just had more good days than bad days. They still had bad days in those 3 months, right? They still had days that they didn't hit the times they were supposed to hit. They didn't do the workout well. They didn't feel well, but they just had more good days than bad days. And I think remembering that, like, and some of that's perception from social media, but some of that is just also like this idea that I think we grow up with is like, we always have to have the best day. We always have to get better the next day. Like, but it's not always like that on the athletic side.
No. And touching both on the athletic side and like people who just, for example, go to the gym for general health, we're not going to feel 100% every day. We're not going to feel motivated every day to go to the gym. And I think it's important to understand, there's the saying about how discipline is more important than motivation. You have to be disciplined.
Right.
And, going back more to the athletic side, like if you're training, 5-6 times a week, you have to be getting your sleep. You have to be eating right. You have to be, stretching and focusing on recovery. Because like you said, that's going to lead to more good days than bad days,
Right.
But for the average person who's just trying to get in shape, you're not going to feel great every day. And that's the way it is. You have to get used to that, You're probably going to feel, I'd say, like for me, every time I go to the gym nowadays, I probably feel maybe like 50 to 70% of myself. If I feel 100%, it's like a one-off and I'm like, wow, this is amazing.
Right.
But I've just got used to not feeling, like I'm totally pumped and excited to go and work out. It's just become part of my daily routine now.
Right. And that's the biggest piece, I think, of of sustaining a longevity of it in fitness for a long term in like a lifetime is not to rely on I have to feel great every day, but to rely on the fact that it's routine.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's like, and you mentioned discipline, and I think that's another piece that I think a lot of people, both in fitness and in nutrition, they miss that piece of, whether they want somebody to just feed it to them, like, hey, tell me what to eat, tell me all the, and so they're always searching for somebody to say, oh, it's okay to eat this. Versus like, no, like you said before, like we know what we have to do, right? We know we have to get sleep. We know we have to eat certain number of vegetables, certain number of fruits, certain, like there's certain things we have to do. Yeah. And like we've blown it up so big, right? Like we've made it so complicated that it's
everyone
more complicated than it is.
Yeah. People are soft now. Yeah, no, you're right. You know exactly what you need to do. People want to take the easy road, and anything worth having is tough. And that's just the way it is. If it was easy to have a 6-pack, everyone would have a 6-pack. If it was easy to be a millionaire, everyone would be a millionaire. There's a reason why it's tough, and there's a reason why it takes sacrifice. And that's because you have to put in the work. Yeah. And I sometimes struggle with this because mindset is very different to other people's, because it's like, you're either going to do it or you're not. Don't moan about it. Don't whinge about it. Just get up and do it, know? Whereas it's hard to say that to some people. So, but like, I'll be sitting on the sofa. I'm like, okay, I need to go and work out. But, our mind is always fighting against us. We know that, whether it's waking up in the morning, getting in your last meal before bed, working out, whatever. And you just have to ignore it, or not even ignore it. You have to learn to control it, because the minute you control your mind, you like bring out a different animal, because now your mind can't dictate to you. It's the other way around.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because it's similar to one of the things I tell my athletes is, especially my distance runners, is like, okay, look, like if you're going to try and run a mile all out, it's going to hurt at some point.
Yep.
Right. Like it's going to hurt at some point, because like it's just, your body's going to say, I don't want to do this anymore at this pace. Yep. I want to slow down. But your physical body can go farther. Yeah. Like we know that, because I mean, all the different research and different things that have tested, and like, the stories of people lifting tractors up over kids and different things that, like, you shouldn't be able to do, but your body, when your mind says, oh my gosh, I have to act, your body responds. And so there's more energy in there. And I tell them, like, if you slow down, the only reason you're slowing down, well, there's two reasons. One is that you didn't prepare yourself. So maybe you weren't trained properly or whatever. But if you've done all the training and, everything is done correctly, and you still slow down, it's because you're letting your mind control what's going on versus you saying, nope, turn the brain off and just run the pace that I know I'm supposed to run.
Yeah, it's I'm sure you're familiar with David Goggins.
Oh yeah.
I'm a massive David Goggins fan, and I'm pretty sure he's the one who said this. But he goes, when you feel like you're ready to stop, you're actually only 40% done. Right. When your mind starts kicking in and telling you that you can't do anymore. Yeah. Because you're only 40% there. You got 60% left in the tank.
Right.
But yeah, well, it's like, going back to listening to music, I'm sure if people go to the gym and, or even run, like for me, especially, like if you make me run without music, I struggle. Like I really struggle. But the minute you put some headphones on me and I can listen to something while I'm running, it makes it so much easier, because it starts distracting the mind. Right. We're not focused so much on what we're doing, So yeah, going back to having control over what we're doing is so important, but very tough. It's easier said than done for sure.
Oh yeah. But the same thing is in like a big piece of starting out a program, right? Like if you've been, unhealthy, not doing anything for months or years, and you go to the gym, and like, even whether you go by yourself or you get a personal trainer or somebody to coach you along, like that initial step is like a huge obstacle, right?
Oh my, yeah. Like I can imagine it's terrifying,
Yeah.
going into an environment in my mind, like how I would imagine it, where everyone knows what they're doing. Everyone's going to look at you because you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
You may be uncomfortable with how you look or how you feel. You don't really know what you're going to do when you get there. Like all of these factors, one would probably think about before they've even got to the gym.
Right.
And when they get to the gym, it's probably even worse because now you hear the weight slamming, you hear everyone talking and it's like, oh my God, what the hell do I do?
Yeah.
So I understand that it's tough. I completely get it. But, if it means, well, first things first, you have to go to the gym with a plan. If you walk into that gym and you don't know what you're doing, you've shot yourself in the foot already.
Yeah.
Like you have to go in with some understanding of what you're going to do before you even get there.
Right.
And even if that means starting off with the machines, so not too many free weights, dumbbell or barbell exercises, just go through the machines.
Right.
That could be a good start, or even going with a friend, and I know sometimes it might be hard to match with friends' schedules and things like that.
Sure.
But if you go with someone, makes it a little bit easier. Start together. Going back to social media and YouTube, look at how to use correct form on the exercises before you go. Do a little bit of due diligence,
right,
and then go in and get the workout. And listen, it's going to be tough, but the more and more you stick with these things, they get easier and easier.
Mm-hmm.
Just have to go through those breaking pains, those breaking in pains. And then once you get the ball rolling, everything becomes easier. You'll start going by yourself. You'll transition to free weights. You'll become more confident. And that would be one of the easiest ways, I would say, to try and overcome that fear of going.
Because that is like a step by step, and not trying to do too much.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Like never try and do too much. And that's one of the things I always tell people, that whether they're going to the gym or they're doing, a program at home on their own, like if you're starting out, or if you're not starting out, if you're just like, hey, I want to increase, mm-hmm. and you become so sore you can't move for 2 days, you did something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like a little bit of soreness is okay.
Yep.
But if you did so much that like you can't get out of bed, and so like, and I know that turns a lot of people off, because it's like, why would I want to go there if I can't get out of bed in 2 days?
Yeah.
Especially like, and so if you did that, you did something wrong.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like, well, do you know what? Jumping off on a quick tangent, but
yeah.
Not really, translating to fighting and MMA. There was an MMA coach, I can't remember his name. And he goes, if I have my fighter doing, he goes to the gym and on Monday, he maxes out on pull-ups. Mm-hmm. Let's say he's just training Monday to Friday. And on Monday, he maxes out on the amount of pull-ups he can do, and he does 15. Mm-hmm. And now he's sore Monday through Friday. He's sore for the rest of the week. He can't do any more. Whereas he goes in every day and he just does 5.
Yeah.
Does 5 a day. Now in that 1 week, he's done 25 reps instead of 15.
Yep.
And now you account that over the year, and he's done a significant amount more over that 1 year than someone who's gone in and done as many as they can and burnt out and thought they've had a great workout. They're now repetition-wise a lot further behind.
Right.
And that kind of reminds me of working out, and especially with boxing, is we can't flatline our bodies. Like we're not built to work out like that, You have to find that sweet spot where exactly like you said, it's fine to be sore for a couple, a day, a couple days after max. And that's the way you'll have long-term success. Mm-hmm. And also you'll be more happy that way. Because if you're going through vigorous workouts every time you're in the gym, it's going to come to a point where you're miserable and you're going to hate going, because it almost feels like you're going into a battlefield. You know? I remember I found this ridiculous program once, Jerry. It was so stupid. It was like a bodybuilding program.
Yeah.
And I would go in and I would have to do like 48 reps of leg extensions. Then I would do deadlifts. Then I would do squats. Then I would do stiff leg deadlifts. But they would all be heavy exercises. And I would be so miserable in the gym. And then after like 3 or 4 weeks, I was like, forget this. I don't want to
Yeah.
do this anymore, So you're right. You have to find that sweet spot. Don't go too hard, just it's going back to, we know how we feel. If you haven't worked out hard enough, and
Right.
if you've done a significant amount, because our brains are wired to not enjoy discomfort.
Right.
That's just the way we're wired. So, but also, and this was a saying I heard when I was younger. If you're going into the gym and let's say you're bicep curling, 5 pounds, but really
Right.
you can bicep curl 15 pounds. The only person you're cheating is yourself,
Right.
no one else.
Yeah.
So that's
true.
one thing I always like to remember. Even when I'm by myself, I'm not going to cheat myself. If I tell myself I'm going to do 10 reps, I'm going to do 10.
Right.
If it gets to 9 and it's hard, I'm not going to stop just because no one's looking. Because in my mind, I'm cheating myself,
Right. Right.
But yeah.
And I think that comes down to discipline too, is that understanding that like I don't want to give up on myself,
Mm-hmm.
and like there's a discipline piece to that. But on the flip side of it, once you hit that once or twice or 3 times, your confidence skyrockets, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like a win,
Yeah.
And that's kind of like how I like to look at my days from the second I wake up. If I said I'm going to wake up at 6, did I wake up? I did. Okay, that's a small win. I started my day off right. Did I have my first meal when I said I wanted to? Yep, that's another win. Did I work out well? Yep. And then you have a collection of wins throughout the day, and that builds confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you set unreal expectations, I'm going to eat 7 meals a day, I'm going to wake up at 4 in the morning, and I'm going to do all these things, and you don't do those, now you have a whole load of losses in the day. And that doesn't build confidence, because you feel like you're not meeting your goals.
Yeah.
So set reasonable goals. And once you meet them, your confidence starts to build, and then you can make them harder and harder. But that confidence is so important. And for me, being able to be disciplined at the gym is one of the easier places to be disciplined.
Right.
For me, if I say I want to get up at 5, it's harder for me to get up at 5. Yeah. Or if I said I'm going to eat X amount of meals a day or not cheat on my meals, like that's very hard.
Yeah.
If I said I'm going to sit and do emails for 2 hours, that's hard. So for me, if you can build that discipline in the gym, then that translates, out towards your everyday life and what you want to achieve, which is important.
Well, and I think that's another big piece and big key, because if you find one area, like granted, there's all kinds of areas of your life, right? There's mind, body, spirit, but there's social life. There's all kinds of different things that you've got going on. But if you can really put a goal to one part of your life, and everything else like filters in through that goal, right? Mm-hmm. Like when you want to reach the top level of boxing, mm-hmm. like you can't just go work out well in the gym, but then when you leave the gym, go do anything else and, not sleep well and eat whatever the heck you want. And like it all filters in your social life, everything filters in, right? Yeah. To that one goal. And so, and it doesn't have to be boxing. It doesn't have to be the gym. It can be anything in life, but to get there, even if it's in the, a corporate world job, like, mm-hmm. but to get the best return on your investment, you still got to sleep well. You still got to eat well, because you're going to nourish your mind. You're going to nourish your brain, all those different things. And so like having that one big goal, but I agree with you, taking smaller steps to get there. Right.
Yeah. And I feel like, ultimately, and whether you talk about boxing or running, it's, I think when you're in a competitive environment, I would argue it's actually a little bit easier, mm-hmm. because now you're up against someone else. Right. And you have the fear in your mind, oh, how hard are they running? How much sleep are they getting? How much stretching are they doing after their runs? Or for boxing, how many rounds are they doing on the bag? Yeah. What time are they waking up and running? So like you're saying, all of those things on the outside play a massive factor, your social life, drinking alcohol, how much water you drink, all of these little things.
Yeah.
So like I'm saying, I think it's actually tougher for just someone who goes to the gym,
Yeah.
and someone who wants to get, for example, put on muscle.
Right.
Unless they see it as competition, like they're up against someone. When you're just doing it on your own, it's a little bit harder, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But still, the importance of just setting reasonable targets and meeting them, and then making them tougher and tougher.
Right. So I came across a quote that, and I'm attributing this to you because you quoted it, but I don't know if you stole it from somebody else or what. But and you sort of touched on this a little bit earlier, but you say the magic happens when you become comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I have known for a long time. I've heard the saying thrown around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Getting comfortable being uncomfortable. It's definitely not something that I made up.
Right.
A lot. I spend a lot of time listening to positive people. A
Right.
lot of time. I think that's one of the most important things you can do. If you were to go on my social media, or my suggested thing, it's just a whole load of positive talk. That's all I listen to. And you have to, like going back to how I mentioned that we're hardwired to hate discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way the brain is. But also going back to the fact that anything worth having requires hard work and dedication.
Right.
And the thing about boxing is, like, let's say, for example, you're sparring. So you're getting in the ring with another one. You're going to be hitting each other,
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be, for me anyway, there was always a high level of nerves.
Right.
All the time. And what happens is I think boxing is a very, very real, all the emotions are very raw and very real. And they almost directly correlate to how we feel in the outside world. So it's easy to kind of recognize, oh, I felt like this there. I understand how I feel now. Okay. So going back to talking about nerves, I would be nervous every single time I had to spar. And that would be multiple times a week, even in like technical drills. So now you imagine I'm nervous maybe like 4 times a week. And it comes to a point where I'm nervous, but now I kind of expect to be nervous. And right. I get comfortable being nervous because I'm used to it. I'm like, okay, there's nothing I can do about it. My nerves aren't going to go. But instead of me trying to act like I'm not nervous, I know I'm nervous and I'm just going to try and embrace it. And for me, that was me trying to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Right.
And that is, once you start doing that, you start to realize how important nerves are, how important fear is, because that's what keeps you switched on. And that's what keeps you sharp. And that's what keeps you doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, because you don't want to slip up. So for me, the magic happens when you become comfortable being uncomfortable. Is almost like you're unlocking all of these mental powers that you didn't even know you had.
Yeah.
Or the ability to where did I hear this? So it was something, I think it was on the Joe Rogan show. I can't remember who he was talking to, but he talked about the more stress you give your body, the more DNA you unlock from all of your ancestors passed down to you.
Oh, wow.
And I had never, ever thought about it like that. Like the DNA built in us from passed down from generations to generations. The more and more we put our body through stressful situations, the more and more of that data and DNA we unlock and learn about ourselves. And for me, that was a big enough reason to want to put myself through stress. Because you don't want to die and have regrets that you didn't unlock your full potential, or you weren't even close to it, you know? And for me, I would rather, I would want to have lived my life and go, do you know what? I beat myself up. I put myself through the mud and I learned all of this stuff about myself, rather than just, I didn't want to wake up early, so I didn't. I
Right.
sat on the sofa, I played video games, I went out all the time with my friends, I drank a whole load of alcohol. And listen, if people want to do that, that's fine. As long as they're happy. I'm not saying
Right.
don't do that, but for me, that's not what makes me happy.
Yeah.
So I want to try and put myself in uncomfortable situations because I feel like I'm going to benefit more in the long run.
And so like, and that sounds a little selfish, right? Like it's because it's like I want to put myself there so I can grow, but really like, and not just in not necessarily in the social media world because things get put out there as well. But you mentioned having a lot of positive people around you. If you're growing in reaching deep and getting all those ancestral pieces together and like pushing yourself past all those things, aren't you influencing the people around you?
Yeah, well, that I've always liked to have thought about myself. Do you know, these podcasts are great because I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like I haven't got to talk so much in my life, but
Right.
I feel like I get a lot of joy out of motivating others
Mm-hmm.
and wanting them to be the best for themselves. I get
Right.
a huge amount of joy in that. And I maybe have like, I would say 3 or 4 close friends. That's it. And we're all on the same boat,
Right.
I'm the only athlete,
Right.
I have one who is a software engineer. One of my other friends is a lawyer, and the other one, he's still in school.
Yeah.
But all of us meant like we're all in totally different fields, but our minds are in the same place.
Oh yeah.
And that's the thing that's amazing because, it shows across the board that you don't just need to be an athlete.
Right.
You could be from any part of life, any career you want, but you still adopt that mindset of being comfortable, being uncomfortable,
Right.
So, is it selfish for me? Sure. It could be considered selfish, but for me, it makes me a stronger and happier and more caring person.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately that spreads out to those around me
Right.
because I don't want anything but the best for everyone else,
Right. Right.
So and my friends are like that for me. So
Yeah.
that's important. Have good friends.
Yeah. No, and that's like the selfishness piece, because I actually fully believe that it's more selfish to not take care of your body and not do the healthy things that you're supposed to do and that we've talked about, like the exercising and the eating right, and it's actually more selfish to do that, in my opinion, because you're cutting down your longevity, you're cutting down your lifespan. Like we all know that, like, and I read something that, and this was before you put in COVID numbers of deaths and things, but like we were already on the trajectory of being the first generation to not outlive our parents. Like,
Yeah.
the kids nowadays are the first generation that's not going to outlive their parents. And like, that's startling. It should be for everybody to be like, wait a minute, like we've been on this constant for hundreds of years of like continuing to get longer lifespan. And all of a sudden now we're going to go shorter.
Yeah.
And it's all because of things we're doing ourselves or not doing.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing it to ourselves. And in my mind, that's more selfish, because if you're not going to take care of yourself, you're potentially not going to be there for your grandkids when they need you. You're not going to be there for your loved one, or just for people in the world that who knows where you're going to be in 20 or 30 years, and the people you can impact. And if you don't take care of yourself, then, that's, you're shortchanging all of us.
Yeah, I 1,000% agree. And you know what? It's tough because I could go into a whole other rant about the agenda and what these massive corporations are trying to instill in us, and through processed foods and keeping society who's weak and unhealthy and easily very easy to manipulate. It's I understand why we're going in this direction.
Right.
And that's why it's even more important for people to be a little bit more aware of what's going on. and to, focus on that, on themselves, and focus on discipline, and just and just question what's going on.
Right.
Like I saw a video on Instagram of New York in the 1930s. Everyone was skinny.
Right. Yeah, everybody.
Everyone's slender. I was like, what the hell's going on? And now you walk down the street here, and you wouldn't be surprised if you see a whole load of people who are overweight.
Right.
And a lot of people talk about genetics and this and that. And where were the genetics then? It's just a whole lot of people who are eating too many calories, not doing enough exercise, and eating a whole load of, processed foods. That's the problem nowadays. So,
yeah. No, I saw we watched a family movie just a couple of weeks ago, back from the 80s, from the early 80s. And my kids are 11 and 13. And one of the teenagers in the movie was talking about like some adults that were off on the side. And they said, oh, well, Mr. So-and-so is the fat one. And then they panned to the adults to show, so you could see, okay, which one is he talking about? And my kids, when they panned, my kids were like, none of those guys are fat. And I was like, oh,
wow.
Yeah. Actually, one of them is, like, from the 80s standards, one of them is. But in today's world,
it's normal.
Just looks normal, and it's not a fat shaming thing. It's an understanding of your body's allowed to carry so much weight, like from an ideal standpoint. And where we are today, there's way too many people that are so far overboard on what we should be carrying around. And exactly. And it's like I said, it's killing us.
Yeah, 1,000%. And it goes back to people needing to like, if you're a fat person, or if you're overweight, not to use the word fat, but if you're overweight, then it's one of those things where a lot of them don't want to hear it. Mm-hmm. A lot of them want to, hide behind it, and like, I get it. It's like, it's uncomfortable, and it's a soft spot. But no one's going to be able to change it apart from you.
Right.
And you need to understand that. And like I'm saying, if you're really happy, that's fine. But like you're saying, it's selfish of you, to yourself and to your loved ones, to the generations who will come after you. Mm-hmm. You owe it to yourself to look after your body and eat well and move around. Because, there's no excuse, that you can get up in the morning and you can go for a walk, you can, there's enough hours in the day, for anyone that tells me there's not enough time, I call BS, know, there's 24 hours in the day. You sleep 8, you work 8, you got 8 left. Right. What are you doing in those 8 hours? You're telling me you can't spare half an hour to go and work out? Of course you can. Yeah. So
no, and that's I heard recently that that same argument, I was listening to a podcast, and the doctor was like, okay, but the average American, at least, like, I don't know what the stats are in the rest of the world, but the average American watches like 4.5 hours of television a day.
Oh my God.
And so you can't tell me that there's not not 30 minutes to go get a quality workout in, or even an unquality workout, just to move your body.
Yeah, like, even 10 minutes.
You've definitely got the time. Yeah. It becomes the discipline and the priority in setting that goal. And I think a lot of people don't set that goal, or they wait until, life happens, right? Like a medical event or something happens, whether it's to them or to a loved one. And then they're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Now I've got to do something, which is still a great time to start, right? Like, it doesn't matter when you start. We just need to start.
Yeah. Well, it's like I heard this saying the other day, is like, if you're driving, you're not going to put your seatbelt on as you're about to crash. Right. You're going to put it on before you even start driving, Yeah. So it's kind of like taking that, like, sure, if you put it on right as you're about to crash, is great. It's going to help. But, it's going to be a whole lot better if it's on way before.
Right.
And because I can't emphasize the importance of routine. Like, your workouts should be a routine.
Yeah.
And that's it. If you feel like, you can go a week without working out at all and you don't feel some type of way about it. That's wrong, in my opinion. Like you have to be moving, you know, I don't care how much it is, but you have to be moving X amount of time per week. Otherwise, in your mind, it should be setting off triggers like, oh my God, I haven't done anything this week.
Right.
And for me, my life's always been like that. But like you're saying, I think for the vast majority of people, maybe it's not like that. And I can't see that because I'm on the other side.
Right.
But, going back to routine, like even if it's 10 minutes a day, it don't matter, just get it in 10 minutes, whatever you can. Just do push-ups till failure. Or, or just do 20 push-ups, 10 push-ups, one push-up, whatever, That's it.
Well, routine. And it's in what I find is that like, for myself, but also for the athletes that I know and that I coach, is that, once you start with one and you just keep that one over every day, just discipline to do one. Eventually you're going to go, well, that was so easy. I might as well do two.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Like, I don't know if you can see, but there's a pull-up bar right there on that
I see.
doorway. And so last year I remember I was like, you know what? My upper body strength is miserable. I'm a runner. I'm a distance runner. I'm like, I know it's important. I'm going to start doing pull-ups. And I was like, okay. And I'll be honest, I couldn't get one. I was like, oh my gosh, this is, but, I was doing my push-ups. I was doing my dips. I started doing some free weights. And now I can do 10 without even thinking about it.
Wow.
And I do 10 every day. And then I do my push-ups and my dips and my other things. This morning I was actually doing them and I was like, should I go to 15? You know? And I didn't, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to plan for that tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to come and I'm going to try and do 15. But
you're not going to do 15, Jerry. You're going to do 11.
Well, right. Yeah. But, it's that one becomes 10 over time.
Yeah.
And to think that like, and I think this is what gets a lot of people caught up with, especially when it comes to weight loss, is like, I know I have 50 pounds to lose. I know I have 80 pounds to lose. I know I have whatever the number is. Mm-hmm. That number seems huge.
Yeah.
Right. And it is huge. But if we take it and go like, I just want to lose a pound this week.
Yep.
Can I lose 1 pound this week? Then it becomes a lot easier to go, oh, well, you know what? Okay. Well, if I just exercise, whatever, it's 15 minutes a day or whatever it is, like if I just do a little bit of change and don't have the soda that day or don't have, like, I can change that 1 pound. That's pretty easy.
Yeah. Yeah. One day at a time.
Yeah.
One day at a time. So important. There was, I'm so full of sayings, but, because I watched them all day long, but it was this story about this boy in the woods, and he was with a horse. Mm-hmm. I think he was with a horse, and all of a sudden the woods became really foggy, and he couldn't see where he was going. He's completely overwhelmed.
Yeah,
and he said to the horse, "What should I do? I don't know where I'm going." And the horse said to him, "Just take one step at a time, because you can see the floor right beneath you, right? Like you can see feet are." And he goes, "Yeah, I can see where my feet are. I can see one step ahead." And the horse goes, "Well, just take one step at a time." Mm-hmm. And then slowly, before you know it, he was out of the woods.
Yeah.
So exactly like you said, if you look at it from a year from now or 5 years from now, it's so overwhelming. Look at it day by day. Did I do what I was supposed to do today? Right. Yes, I did. Great. Do it again tomorrow, and then keep on going.
Right. And like when you first got exposed to it, when you're 7, 8 years old, and like you fell in love with boxing and you fell in love with the fighting aspect of it. But like when you were 7 or 8, did you imagine where you're going to be today?
No, not at all. Right. Not at all. I moved to California like nearly 2 years ago. If someone told me I'd be living here, I'd say you're crazy. Mm-hmm. Life's full of twists and turns. And I think we have to understand to an extent that we have no control. Mm-hmm. Like the only thing we have control of is what we're doing day to day.
Right.
And in turn, that can, reasonably guide where we're going to go. But ultimately, we don't know what's going to happen. Anything can change in the blink of an eye, and you just have to be okay with that. So some people find that tough, because people want to have control over everything.
Right.
But like I was saying, as long as you have complete control over what you're doing day to day, then you'll be fine.
Yep. And the easiest way to do that is to have a routine, right?
Yeah. Everything, you have to have a routine. You have to you have to make it easy for yourself.
Right.
Because it's like routine and discipline is hard.
Yeah.
But it's a whole lot easier that waking up at the same time every day than different times every day and being completely out of rhythm. You almost become miserable.
Yeah.
There's been times, I can't remember, but when or even sometimes when you're ill, when you're not feeling well and you need to sleep a whole lot, and you sleep multiple times throughout the day, and then you go to bed and you wake up at noon and you're like, oh, this feels terrible.
Yeah.
It's throwing your routine off. That doesn't feel nice for me at all. So yeah, just getting into that routine is probably the most important thing you can do, in my opinion.
Right. And that mindset of, I mean, because we talk about boxing, like I think a lot of people would look at it and go like, the last thing I would want to do would be get into a ring with somebody and intentionally get hit. Like, like that's the last thing I want to do. And you might still have that thought when you're going in, right? But like, it's the preparation before that you can then lean on and go like, hey, I might have nerves. I might be scared. This guy might be, this generation's or weight classes Mike Tyson that I'm going up against. But like, yeah, I've done the preparation, and so I'm going to be okay.
Exactly. Well, do you know what it is? I see boxing as like, when you look back in the day at like the gladiators, like in the arenas, like just pure savages,
right?
They're not worried about what happens to them. It's more, they're more concerned about how capable they are.
Right.
So for me, it's never been like a case of me being scared of being hurt. The times I am scared and the times I am nervous are more of me embarrassing myself.
Oh yeah.
But the reason why I like it is because I feel like there's nothing better than building like a mind of steel and a body that's totally capable.
Yeah.
And like fighting is the last result in any type of conflict. The end result is physical altercation.
Right.
And if you can be comfortable there, it's your body's like a weapon, and that's what fascinates me.
Yeah.
I want my mind to be strong. I want my body to be like a machine, to be able to handle whatever comes its way. So that's a lot of the fascination I get with boxing, rather than just like the actual like being punched in the face. I think I just see it a little bit deeper than that surface level.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool. It's like the modern day gladiator, or even it's like it's you just have it's you versus yourself. It's not even you versus the other person. Like you often hear in boxing is 80% mental, 20% physical.
Right.
Because most likely you're going to get into the ring with someone who's in similar shape to you. He's not going to be that much more conditioned than you are, or it might be the other way around. But how the mindset that you both go into that ring can be completely different.
Right.
And that's the importance of being strong and understanding being nervous and being scared and having fear, but almost learning how to harness it and not let it burn you,
Right. Right. No, I had all that, like I had an experience a couple of weeks ago. I jumped in, I'm 48, and I jumped into a college race.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Jerry, you're not 48.
Yeah. Actually, I'll be 49 next month.
Oh my
so I'm like,
God.
I'm knocking on, on middle age. But I jumped into a race at Baylor University, and top D1 schools, college kids. And I was like, you know what? It's in my hometown. Like, I'm going to jump in there and I knew going into it, I was like, okay, I'm going to get last place. Like my times are not where these college kids are. Like, but that's okay. I get to run in front of my family and my friends, and I mean, there were probably 40 people there throughout the stands because I got multiple people sent me videos. But of those videos, there's multiple voices being yelled out, like yelling for me, you know. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But I went into it, and yeah, I went into it. People were like, aren't you nervous running against all these like 19, 20-year-olds that are so much faster than you? And I was like, well, yeah, but I have a goal. My goal is to get pulled along because they're going to go fast. So hopefully they can pull me along to a fast time. Right. Because I want to get ranked like nationally and internationally for my age group. Like I don't care about, there's no way I'm going to win the race. Right. Like I knew that going in, like, that's not part of the goal. Was I hoping to beat one person? Sure, I was. Did I? No, but that's okay. I actually hit the time goal that I wanted, you know. Okay. So it was like, all right, I'm right there. But my biggest thing when I was standing on the line to start, you know, as opposed to nerves and opposed to like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go chase these guys down because I knew and if you watch the video, it's on my YouTube channel. Like 100 meters into the race, I'm already 5 meters back. Like, you know, like they left me, and I knew that was going to happen. But I was standing on the line going, just don't embarrass myself. Like there's, you know, several hundred people here watching a race, like all these college kids, all these college coaches, like just don't embarrass myself, you know? And I finished, and granted I hit the time I wanted, but there were a lot of people there that, I mean, when you saw me, you could tell, okay, this is an old guy. Like, what's he doing here? But they never really announced it. They knew how old I was, like when I submitted but they never announced it over the loudspeaker, like, hey, this guy's almost 50. Like he's out there doing this. But I finished, and as I was walking back to the area where they had all the, you know, where you checked in and you left your warm-up stuff. I was walking over there, and Christian Coleman, who is a 100-meter world champion, 60-meter world record holder, wow. Like he was there competing on the professional level. He was walking past me, and he looked at me, and he was like, really good job. And I was just like, wow, this guy is Nike sponsored, like top of the line, like, you know, and to me, it was like, and I know I inspired all the people that were in the grandstands, and the people and the guys that were in the race with me were all coming up and like, great job. Congratulations. That was awesome. But the look on his face was just like, if you can do that at your age, why am I thinking about like, why, you know, like, why is this so hard for me? Why can I can do more? You know, and that's why I do the things that I do, you know, and that we were talking about this before. Like that's why I do the podcast, is to like if I get one person with each episode to change something in their life, like that's, and so for me, it goes back to, there's so much potential we all have. And if we're cutting ourselves short by not being healthy, how much are we affecting generations down the road because we're not around for them?
Yeah, it's important, you know. Just if I had to summarize, you know, the way I think about it is just set easy goals. Start off easy, you know. Start off easy and just get into a routine. That's it.
Yeah.
But once you can do that, write it down. Write down what you want to do. You know, make a bit of a plan for yourself.
Right.
No one's going to do it for you. You're in control of this stuff. You know, you have to do your due diligence, and that's it. You know, it's not going to take long. It'll take you maximum 30 minutes of your day to really plan out what you want to do.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then it's up to you to go for it. You know, you owe it to yourself. You owe it to your family. And, you know, you owe it to, like I said, the generations, your kids, your grandkids, all of them, you know. So routine. That's it. It's as simple as that. It's not complicated.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Romie, we I can't believe an hour's gone by. This is crazy. This is great.
I know.
But I want to be respectful of your time. And so how can people follow you, get in touch with you? Like, how can they stay in touch with you?
So my main thing right now, I'm in the process of getting a website made, but at the moment I'm on Instagram. And it's just
Okay.
Romie Boxing, Romie, and then boxing.
Okay.
That'll be the main way people can hit me up. And yeah, just if you need anything or any advice or any motivational tips,
Right.
let me know.
Cool. No, and I've checked out your Instagram, and yeah, I definitely recommend people following you because you are putting out some great content. So
thank you so much.
Looking forward to everything you do in the future.
Thank you. Yeah, and I hope to be back on at some point in the future, Jerry. We'll have like we'll reconvene and talk about what's changed.
Yeah, that'd be great. So,
Cool. Let's do it.
right.
Cool.
Thanks.